Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 205 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. It's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew this week. First off, the owner of Goldfish, Richard. How's it going today, Richard?
Going well, Seth. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well. Still getting over this infinite cold that I feel like I've had forever, but I'm feeling better, getting there. Excited to talk about some new Magic cards. We have so many spoilers, but before we get into that, we also have Krim with us today. How's it going, Krim?
Hey, how's it going, Seth? Doing all right. I've been excited to see all the new things coming out this week.
So, since last week, we have hit the official start of Ravnica Allegiance spoiler season, which means we have like an infinite number of cards to talk about today. So we're going to spend pretty much the entire cast talking about spoilers, new Ravnica Allegiance cards, and then hopefully hit up some fishmail at the end. So that's the plan for today. Before we jump into it, we have a new sponsor for today's cast, which is Tigtoad. So, a hero's quest begins with a first simple quest, and then it's followed by another slightly more complicated quest. Some might want or even need some additional information, but our hero needs only to know that it is a quest, and soon you will know his name, for he is Tigtone, a new gorgeously animated weird show from Adult Swim. Tigtone, the quest begins January 13th at midnight, only on Adult Swim. So, I'm actually kind of excited by this. I used to really like some Adult Swim shows. I don't watch it nearly as much as I used to. The one show that I still watch from Adult Swim regularly is Rick and Morty, which I think is good. But man, some of the old shows, like Home Movies is one of my favorite animated shows of all time. C-Lab, I don't know if any of you guys have seen those, but for me, those are like animated classics at this point. So I think it's pretty cool. So check out Tigtone. Hopefully it's a super sweet new show on Adult Swim. So thank you to Adult Swim and Tigtone for supporting the show. And with that out of the way, let's talk about some spoilers. So Richard, you have our massive list of Ravnica Allegiance cards. Why don't you walk us through some sweet spoilers?
All right, pacing. Every spoiler season, we either have too many spoilers or not enough spoilers. With WotC needs to, hit the sweet spot. Today is the day where we have like a million characters to talk about that we all know and love and we can't leave out. So might be a long podcast, but we're going to start with the Planeswalkers we got since last week. We have Domri, Chaos Bringer, 4 red and a green, starts at 5 loyalty. +1, add a red or green. If that mana is spent on a creature spell, it gains Riot. -3, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 creature cards from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. -8, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of each end step, create a 4/4 red and green beast creature token with trample.
I mean, it's about what I was thinking with Domri. Like, it's definitely a creature-focused Planeswalker. I think it could actually be pretty good in Standard. I think the scariest part of this card for me is actually the +1. Riot is a pretty scary ability, and Domri, at 4 mana, it happens to light up right on curve, where if you play Domri on turn 4, untap, turn 5, plus, and you have like a hasty Carnage Tyrant, which is really scary if you're playing some sort of like mid-rangey, I don't know, Jund or Gruul style deck. So, I think this card, it has a lot of loyalty. It has a lot of upside if you're playing a creature heavy deck, and it's probably going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I that's exactly what I was thinking. I was worried about, does Carnage Tyrant really need Riot?
Yeah, 4 mana, 5 loyalty is a lot. And I guess the question to me is, will there be a Gruul deck? Probably. And how many of your cards already have Riot? Like, will they make a better Carnage Tyrant? Like, what if there's a Carnage Tyrant with Riot built in? So if all your creatures have Riot, then the +1 kind of is meh.
However, though, Riot actually stacks. That was something that was just confirmed on Twitter. So you actually would Riot twice, basically.
What?
Yeah.
Yep.
What? I don't know. With this move to like the non-triggered, it just comes into so you can give, if you have a double stacked riot, you can go +1/+1 and haste.
Yep. Yes, or double +1/+1 or whatever. Yeah,
or double haste if you want to. In your opponent.
Like it's
like Carnage Tyrant. Double haste.
That's actually especially relevant with an enchantment that we probably won't talk about today, but like the Fires of Yavimaya, what is it? Rhythm of Savagery, I think it is, because you can stack up all 4 of those on the battlefield, and then each of your creatures is going to have like X4 riot, which is just absolutely absurd.
All right, maybe a Planeswalker Crim will care about here. Dovan Grand Arbiter, 1 white and a blue, 3 loyalty, +1 until end of turn. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a loyalty counter on Dovan. -1, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. You gain 1 life. -7, look at the top 10 cards of your library, put 3 of them in your hand, the rest at the bottom in a random order.
Yes.
Take it back, Crim doesn't care. Combat-based Azorius Planeswalker.
I'm not sure how I feel about this card, to be honest with you. I've been trying to look into the 3-mana Planeswalkers, and this one is like, I guess, better than the other for me, but I just, like, I don't really like Dovan, to be honest. I don't know. It's a weird read.
It's definitely not what I was expecting. I was expecting, based on our first Dovan, like a kind of a control deck style of Planeswalker. And Dovan, it's really like a creature deck style Planeswalker. I guess you could play it in control, like if you just -1 3 times, you kind of build a really slow spectral procession and gain a little bit of life. But I think where I've seen people talking about this, where it might actually be good, is some sort of like blue-white flyer style deck, almost like the mono blue tempo deck splashing into white for Dovan and maybe some additional like removal or sideboard cards. In a deck like that, you get in with a bunch of evasive creatures, you're going to get loyalty really quickly, and then you're doing like the super dig through time. So maybe there's a home for it. I kind of also like the artifact synergies, like curving Dovan into Karn into Tezzeret seems like a reasonable like artifact super friend idea. So it's not what I expected, but I'm coming around on Dovan maybe being good.
Would Bant tokens want to play this?
Ooh, that's another possibility.
I was thinking, like, we have a bunch of token decks in Standard, green, white, and you can go Bant. And is this like the old Gideon, like the Gideon no one played, where you can just get a bunch of loyalty? So if you go like turn 1, Legion's Landing, turn 2, Raise the Alarm, turn 3, Dovan attack, and if your opponent can't do anything, next turn you can ultimate Dovan, and you probably win by drawing 3 cards off your top 10. So maybe, and if you're not crazy behind, you just make Thopters, and then Venerated locks it on and stuff. So I don't know. I think he could be good. I think he's not the control Dovan you're looking at, but in a tempo deck or in a tokens deck, like maybe he does something useful.
Although the thing that scares me is it reminds me a little bit of Bad Jace, the 3-mana Jace that kind of needed creatures to deal damage to do anything. That's the part that makes me a little bit nervous.
No. He's not Bad Jace. He's better than Bad Jace. All right. Another 3-mana Planeswalker. We have Kaya, Orzhov, Usurper, 1 white and a black, 3 loyalty, +1, exile up to 2 target cards from a single graveyard. You gain 2 life if at least 1 creature card was exiled this way. -1, exile target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less. -5, Kaya deals damage to target player equal to the number of cards that player owns in exile, and you gain that much life.
To me, this is one of the weirdest Planeswalkers that I think that we've ever seen. It's the first Planeswalker that I could think of that feels like it's like a sideboard card. Like, it feels like you play this as like a utility sideboard card for graveyard hate and for like the isolate effect. So it's hard to wrap my mind around it, because you're used to like having Planeswalkers be these 4 of, you build your deck around them like threats, but this is more like, it seems like it can exile some Arclight Phoenixes from the graveyard in the right matchup, or maybe you kill a Fanatical Firebrand, but I don't know. It is a weird Planeswalker.
There's like modern I guess, playability to some people. I read online about how playing like Esper Mill could be a thing. Because then you have the ult.
How about Vintage, where it snipes mocks and stuff like that?
I actually think this is a Planeswalker that maybe gets better in older formats. Like, the abilities seem more relevant in older formats than they do in Standard.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, I was trying to break this in Commander. I'm like, it's like so bad. Because you're like, okay, if I have a doubling season, you can just come in an ultimate, right? So then you just Relic of Progenitus someone or like Leyline someone and do this. But then I'm like, you have to get 40 cards in the graveyard before you can one-shot them. I'm like, how?
And have doubling season.
Doubling season. What kind of Planeswalker doesn't work with doubling season?
Exactly. I think even Bad Jace.
Bad Jace works.
Bad Jace becomes all right Jace.
No, you just get infinite bad Jaces, I think. I don't know if that makes it better, like more of something that's bad. I don't know if that's good, but
that's a lot of tutus, Seth.
That's true. That's true.
All right. Next up, we have Prime Speaker Vanifar. 2 green and a blue, 2/4, legendary creature, Elf Ooze Wizard. Tap it, sacrifice another creature. Search your library for a creature with converted mana cost equal to 1+ the sacrifice creature's converted mana cost. Put that card on the battlefield, shuffle your library, activate this anytime you could cast a sorcery. Basically, tap and Birthing Pod.
Yep.
Oscard.
Elf Ooze Wizard.
Busted.
I think it's going to be good. I think this is going to be a good card for sure. I mean, I just more so love the way they've done their creature types this set. So,
like, how is she an ooze in any way here? Like, what is the ooze?
Her like weird, slimy arms?
Like the glowy arms?
Those
right?
might be ooze arms, yeah. I guess those are probably ooze arms.
And
Does
then
oozes
her, like,
even have arms? Scavenging Ooze doesn't have arms, does it?
No, but remember, that wasn't an Elf Ooze Wizard.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. As far as actual play, I'm mostly excited for this in Modern, where you have a lot of the same old birthing pod loops that work with Prime Speaker, so it's super easy to build a deck where if you untap with Prime Speaker and like even just a Birds of Paradise, a 1-drop on the battlefield, you just win the game that turn by assembling combos. So it'll be interesting to see if it's good enough. Like, you can play it quickly off your mana dorks, have it come down on like turn 3 maybe. The problem is it does die to removal. Is that going to be too much of a sticking point? Like, are you just never going to untap with it? It dodges Lightning Bolt, which is something, but you can definitely build birthing pod style combo decks for Modern, where Prime Speaker, untap with it, just like sacrifice, untap it, sack, untap it, sack, untap it, assemble Kiki Jiki Restoration Angel or whatever and win the game.
Yeah,
what were the old pod decks? They're like Naya, right?
There was a bunch of different versions over the course of time.
I remember them mostly being Abzan.
I think
right?
Abzan was like
Abzan.
the last
Oh,
version.
Abzan. Yeah. Yeah, so you have to put blue in here. It dies to removal. It's legendary. I don't know if that matters. But on the other side, you could also tutor it out, right? Like, you could cord out your Prime Speaker. You could...
Eldritch Evolution.
Yeah, you can. There's a bunch of ways to get it out. So I'm not sure where it falls. And the question is Birthing Pod good enough for Modern still? Because Birthing Pod was in a different era of Modern, right? So it's very interesting. But it's interesting that they're like, we're banning Birthing Pod. It limits our design space. And they're like, here, have another Birthing Pod. And I'm like, So I guess they feel the dies to Doomblade is strong enough to keep this card in check.
Yeah, making it like you can interact with it with just like basic removal, like Dismember or anything like that.
And I think...
What about Standard? Do you guys think we see a lot of Prime Speaker in Standard?
I think I like it more in Standard, to be honest with you, because it seems like it's more likely to survive.
It also seems a lot less game winning. Like, I'm not sure what I found like a dinosaur-based loop, which is really janky, that could technically win you the game, but there's not too many just, like, loops where you untap with Prime Speaker and win in Standard. There's not many untap effects. So I guess you could play it for value, which is something, but yeah, I don't know. I'm more excited about it for Modern, so interesting. We'll have to have you can build the best Prime Speaker Standard deck, I'll build the best Modern deck, and then we'll play and see who wins.
Okay. That sounds like it'll be a blast for one person.
Yes, I will be having so much fun.
Correct.
All right, next up we have Rackdos, the Showstopper. 4 black and a red. 6/6, legendary creature demon. Flying trample. When Rackdos enters the battlefield, flip a coin. For each creature that isn't a demon, devil, or imp. Oh, just flip a coin, period. Destroy each creature whose coin comes up tails. I expected different templating. Demon, devil, or imp, tribal. Here we go.
Did they just make this card to have good moments on Twitch? That's what this feels. This feels like a Hearthstone card where they were watching like those Hearthstone meme videos where random stuff happens and they probably had like a ton of views and they're like, we gotta figure out a way to do this on Magic Arena.
I can see why you would think that, but I don't know. I mean, I like this card. I just like it because of the name mostly, and also like this. It's a 6/6 flample, if you would, for 6 mana, and I don't know. I mean, I like the ability. It gives me a shot at killing a ton of things on board, and it's a lot of meme value. So, is that a bad thing that it is a meme?
No, I don't even know if
like,
it's like... The variance part bothers me a little bit. Like, I don't know if I like that part, but I don't think the meme aspect is a bad thing necessarily.
If I'm going to put my fate in the hands of RNG, it needs to be better. Like, it's like a 6 mana 6/6, which you might stabilize the board. And I feel like we've gotten a lot better 6/6 flying trample creatures, like more aggressively costed.
Well,
so I don't know if it's memey enough, right? Like,
it needs to meme harder.
really?
like maybe if it was like a single flip and you wrath the whole board, because I don't know, like I don't know, man. Like they have like 6 creatures and you kill 2 of them. You're like, oh, okay, and you still die.
You also kill the wrong ones.
But then
you kill the ones with like undying and persist or whatever that have ETBs that kill you, and you're like, oh. Okay, Twitch highlight, boom.
It is worth pointing out though that we have some good demons now. We have like Spawn of Mayhem, which we'll talk about in a minute. We have Doom Whisperer. We have Demon Lord Belzenlock. So I don't think it's impossible that you can build this so it's just kind of all upside. Like you play this and kill half of your opponent's creatures and don't do anything to your creatures. So I think maybe that's where Rackdos is good. Or if you play it in a relatively creature-free deck, like some sort of Jund control Planeswalker deck where this is just like kill 2 or 3 creatures most likely when it enters the battlefield and doesn't really do anything to your battlefield. It could work in that context.
So
but what if
into Rackdos? There you go. John.
With Riot, look at that.
Riot. Just give him Riot and it looks better.
I mean, what if we threw in Helm of the Host though? You know, and then we start getting to that area where we start making multiple Rackdos.
We add like 9 mana of stuff onto him. And, give him a Jite. If he's holding a Jite, he's looking pretty fearsome.
They just need to reprint Craig's Thumb. That's what we really need.
Yep. This would be such a pain on like a paper tournament. Like,
yeah.
This seems like a huge pain in paper.
You're going to be that guy that flips the coin and it falls off the table.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm sorry, I got to flip it again.
Can you imagine?
Does it count?
Can you imagine your opponent's like, all right, editor, like March of Multitudes for 20. And you're like, haha, Rackdos, get out your corner.
I might have a shot here.
Wait, whose time does it take when coins are flipping?
Oh, no.
Is that your ability or their ability?
I didn't think about that. Hopefully,
how will this work on those?
I will say this is we have a new way of grading cards, which is arena animations, and I'm expecting that this to be like the top of the line best animation from Ravnica Allegiance on Arena.
It has to be the showstopper.
It's gotta be. It's gotta
right?
literally
like, so.
shop the. Hopefully, it also is the clock stopper, so you don't time out while you're flipping your coins.
Rackdos the clock stopper. Can you imagine timing out because your opponent just had a full board? Or
you know what I really
like
want to see? You know that animation when you play Galta or something like, or Carnage Tyrant, he like pops out of the card. I want to see them pop out of the card, flip a coin.
Oh my God. Like I just want to see Rackdos wink
the coin and sees what happens.
like the coin will have Rakdos' face and he'll just wink each time its heads or something.
All right, we've hyped it up. If it's a bad animation, we won't forgive the Arena team. All right, we have Teysa Karlov, 2 white and a black 2/4 legendary creature human advisor. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Creature tokens you control have vigilance and lifelink.
It's Reverse Panharmonicon. I asked for this like a couple of podcasts ago. We were talking about cards that we wanted, and Reverse Panharmonicon was one of the cards I wanted. So I am unreasonably excited for this card. It is going to be so much fun to build around. It's not as good as Panharmonicon because one of the things that made Panharmonicon so much fun is it was colorless, so you could play so many different versions of Panharmonicon. Being in 2 specific colors does limit the number of decks that can play Tisa, but you could do some really fun things with that. I haven't found any I win the game combos yet, but you can definitely get a lot of value taking advantage of death triggers. In standard, you have Afterlife, which is an easy way to get more tokens out of it. Plus, you have like Judith, the random archer thing that people play on Arena for some reason that I've never seen anyone play anywhere else. What do you know the name of that card? You must know it, Krim.
Because Judith is not archer.
No, there's also an archer that like triggers when something dies. That's like a 4-mana Golgari card, I think.
Poison tip archer.
Poison, yes.
Yeah, poison tip archer.
You have stuff like that where you can double up the death triggers, and importantly, it triggers off death causing anything to trigger. So you can have like artifacts or enchantments that do something when creatures die. In Modern, you have like Revelark is a cool way to take advantage of Tisa with its evoke trigger, which is technically a death trigger if it goes to your graveyard. So I'm really excited for the possibilities of Tisa, although I haven't figured out the best way to abuse it yet.
I mean, I think it's the only applications I like from this are with Afterlife. Although there are definitely a lot of things dying that you would like to trigger twice. This one specifically, I can't wait to see Afterlife because it's still one of my favorite mechanics, and I'd like to just make a ton of tokens.
I just want a Zulaport Cutthroat Tesa, and that's it.
I mean,
that's as wild as I'm gonna get.
It's also legendary, Richard, so you have your commander applications. Like, it seems like a fun build around commander card.
It's the card that everyone will kill you as soon as they see in your command zone. They're like, there's a Tesa there, he's made 2 tokens, kill him right now.
Actually,
right? Like, we don't know what could happen. Like, he's already got 2 tokens, kill him. Right? Like,
I think that's Prime Speaker, actually. I think if you see someone with Prime Speaker as their commander, you gotta assume you just have to kill them immediately.
All right. Last up of our legendaries, we have Judith, the Scourge Diva. 1 black and a red, 2/2. Legendary creature, human shaman. Other creatures you control get +1/+0. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, Judith deals 1 damage to any target.
I really like this card. I really like this card in standard, just mostly because it pumps the rest of your team. I don't know if there's going to be an aristocrats deck, but I sure as heck want one.
Yeah,
and it would be in Mardu.
It's worse with aristocrats than I want it to be, I think, because of the non-token clause for creatures dying, so you can't use your afterlife cards to like double up or triple up your death triggers too easily. But it seems like a powerful card, just like pumping your team, and then even if this is just like wrath and removal protection, if your opponent kills your board, you're gonna get a bunch of these pinging triggers. Seems like a pretty good card in that context, and definitely worth mentioning that it can hit creatures, which is a pretty interesting upside over Blood Artists and Zulaport Cutthroats and whatnot. You can actually use this as removal on your opponent's creatures if you manage to sacrifice your own board or something.
Yep. The only bummer I have, the downside for me is that it's legendary. I wish I could have multiple of these. Multiple of these would be pretty sweet.
It makes it a lot worse for aristocrats, that's for sure.
Don't sleep on just playing this fairly as an anthem effect. Like, if you take today's mono red decks and you just throw this thing in, suddenly those goblin tokens look a little scarier. Your chain rollers are bigger. Like, your Gitu Lava Mancers are bigger. Like, it actually does things. And if your opponent rats, they just take a whole bunch of damage. So in just a fair application, I think Judith is actually pretty decent as well, depending on what Rackdos cards we get.
Yeah. As Seth said, just it dealing 1 damage to any target is really good.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Spawn of Mayhem. 2 black, 4/4 creature demon. Spectacle, 1 black. Flying trample. At the beginning of your upkeep, Spawn of Mayhem deals 1 damage to each player. Then if you have 10 or less life, put a +1/+1 counter on Spawn of Mayhem.
Go ahead.
I want to like this.
I think this is a good card. I think it's definitely a powerful card. I'm not really sure about it being mythic. I was in a big debate on Reddit this past week over whether this card should be mythic or not. I don't know if it really feels mythic to me, but it feels like a card that's pretty good for standard. Like if you're playing Rackdos or some sort of aggro deck and you're playing this for 3 mana, a 4/4 flying trample with upside for 3 mana, that's a legitimate card. It dodges lightning strikes. It does die to lava coil, but I feel like this could end up being a pretty good threat for Black X aggro decks in standard.
That's kind of just my thing with the card. I'm not really sure where it goes. Like it for me, it's, I really like the card itself. But I want to play a demon deck. That's all like the first thing I saw. I saw no other applications other than, hey, I can make a Liliana's Contract deck. This will be fun.
We're still a little light on demons. There's like 7, I think, in standard if you play like the bad common ones that you probably shouldn't play in standard. But we're getting closer. Like there's almost enough demons to make Liliana's Contract work, I think.
Yeah. That's about it. I mean, if you get to spectacle cast this though, it is really good, and it does it does make it so that, you know, you get spectacle for like the rest, like as long as it's on the board, the beginning of your upkeep.
Yeah.
You guys missed the most important part of this card. He has a club hand.
I mean,
like it's like a cast or something with spikes on it. And he's just coming at you as a 3 mana 4/4 flying trample, deals 1 damage in upkeep, and when you're low enough, it gets +1/+1. Like, what more do you want out of a card, guys? He's like so full of stuff. Like, any Rackdos deck will be able to cast him as a 3 mana 4/4 flying trample. Like, that's good enough as is. And then every turn they don't deal with him, he pings you some more, and then you get +1/+1 counters. Like, what?
He just keeps hitting you with that club hand.
Sometimes he swings the club hand and like hits himself. Okay, like he takes a little damage. What's hilarious is his other hand is like a rapier-looking sword, like some finesse precision weapon, and then this hand is like a giant club.
Oh, maybe the sword is to like poke you for 1 each turn, and then the club is to like attack you for 4.
I love that the club is the one that hits you for 4, not the sword.
With 3 mana 4/4 flying trample, like what?
Yeah, those are good. The stats are really solid, and that's, I think, enough on its own that it'll be good. Even discounting like jankier options like Liliana's Contract and the fun stuff we want to do with it. Just a 3 mana 4/4 with flying and trample. Those are good stats.
All right, next up we have Sphinx of Foresight. 2 blue 4/4 creature Sphinx. You may reveal this card from your opening hand. If you do, scry 3 at the beginning of your first upkeep. Flying at the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1.
Why do people like this card?
Bulk.
I don't get it.
Do people like this? I think this is just kind of bulk for me.
I heard some people saying it was literally like the best card in the set. And like it was going to change Modern, it's going to change Legacy, you can cut lands from your deck and just scry for the lands you need, and Desi, it's a 4/4. Like, didn't we have a 4/4 for 4 that like an Amonkhet that was like kind of semi-playable in a cycling deck or something?
Well, it didn't immediately. You had to cycle to scry, I think, right?
Yeah, yes, you had to cycle to scry. But is scrying 3 on your upkeep, is that worth anything? Are you going to play a subpar creature in your deck so you can scry 3 on your upkeep if it's in your opening hand?
You scry it away after you've drawn it.
But you have to scry. You only get to scry on your first, or scry 3 on your first upkeep.
Yeah,
on your first upkeep. So at the beginning, so it's interesting because it's the, like, what is that cycle? Like the old cycle where if it's in your hand,
Chancellors?
The Chancellor cycle, right? So we haven't had this mechanic where you reveal this card and you scry 3 at the beginning of your first upkeep. Now, if we say a scry is worth half of a card, that's 1.5 cards on your first upkeep for playing this, right? So maybe, I mean, 4 mana.
I have to mulligan for it.
Wait, why do you have to
I don't
mulligan
know.
for it?
I wouldn't mulligan for this, to be honest with you, because then I'm like holding onto a 4-mana 4/4.
I mean, that's
And
not
hope-
bad. It's not like you're holding a 6-drop or something, right? Like, it's playable and on curve. Like, it's not that bad.
No, I think
It's not that bad.
that's a good description of Sphinx of Foresight. It's not that bad.
So I guess when you're looking in a world of Drakes where they're like 3 mana, like 15 4s, this 4 mana 4/4 may not be up to par, but
It's definitely not up to par.
I think
I feel it's not so bad that it's bulk, but it's not like the greatest thing. Like people are making it out to be
Like,
either. It's just like possibly playable.
I think if there's a home for it in standard, it's probably the mono blue tempo deck where you got to have Curious Obsession. Like that is 100% how that deck works. If you have Curious Obsession, you are playing like the best deck in standard. And if you don't have Curious Obsession, you're playing 1/1s for 1, which is pretty pathetic.
You're playing a sick draft.
So yeah, medium draft deck, I would say, without Curious Obsession. But Sphinx is a good way to dig for your Curious Obsessions, or maybe to like cut an extra land from the deck to help you draw more action after you're drawing with Curious Obsession. And it's not horrible in that deck. Like it fits the theme of flying blue creatures. So if it has a chance to do something in standard right away, that seems like the best bet for me.
Yeah.
All right, what if you just play this in a jumpstart deck?
Could you imagine if you have all 4 and you could just cry 12? That's like, how much is that? How many? That's like you get 2 opening hands, right, Richard? If a
What you
scry.
do is scry 3, keep 3 on top, and then scry the remaining 3 scry 3s that do nothing. That will be my luck. That will be my luck.
Started with 14
Yes,
cards.
that's like if a scry is half a card.
I bet you someone's gonna get that wrong. Someone's gonna pick up 12 cards and they're like,
Oh God.
all right. Next up, we have Pestilent Spirit, 2 in the black, 3/2 creature spirit, Menace Death Touch, instant and sorcery spells you have or you control have Death Touch.
Such a unique creature.
I love this card.
It's so unique. What do you like about it, Grim?
Exactly, just because of that. Like, the fact that you can give, like, it's unique, it's cool. I love it from the design point of it. It's just giving your instants and sorceries Death Touch. That's so cool. I mean, I I did make a tweet about this card and, like, what is it? Call of the Carnarium. But like, the Call of the Carnarium doesn't work with this, by the way. It's a minus. It's just, I like those 2 cards separately. But yeah, like this card just from a design space is just interesting to me. So, it makes like things like Electrickery and all that other stuff into a Plague Wind, as you read online.
Yeah, that's definitely super sweet. And there's some in standard, like Cosmolic Wave or something like that. It's like 4 mana.
Yeah, Cosmotronic Wave.
Yeah. Does 1 damage.
I know because of rats.
That is the rat hate for Singleton. Yeah, so it seems good for that. Also, like a more practical application of this card is you're playing like Rackdos aggro in standard, and you have a hard time dealing with big creatures. You want to have like lightning strikes and shocks as your removals, so you can go face. And this gives you a way to like shock a Doom Whisperer or a Lyra or something that would be ruining your day. So that might be the more, I don't know, a normal application is just turning your little burn spells that you want to be playing anyway into ways to kill big creatures that would otherwise probably beat you.
Yeah. That's pretty much like what I was thinking, like Shivan Fires and Shocks towards like big, I don't know, potentially new big, Groll threats and all this other stuff blocking the way like Lyra.
Yeah, this reminds me of what is the 1-drop Soulscar Mage? It reminds me of Soulscar Mage in the sense that it makes your little burn spells more effective. So you use it to use your shocks to kill big green creatures that you can't deal with. And I think you would do that more than jam like Electrickery and other bad cards into your deck, hoping to get the Plague Wind off. Like the only way I see that working is if we have a split card that does something like that, where the one half of the split card is something playable, like a Lava Coil type effect, and then the other is like Electrickery. That would be nuts with Pestilent Spirit. But I don't think you should be jamming random bad AoE spells in for this, but it'll just make like your shocks and lightning strike like more legitimate.
The other thing worth mentioning with this card is the stats aren't bad. I mean, 3/2 Menace Death Touch for 3 is not that bad, and Death Touch is sneakily powerful in a world of Carnage Tyrant. This is like, if you're playing little Rackdos creatures, this is actually a removal spell for Carnage Tyrant too, since you can actually block it and get it off the battlefield.
Well, it means you're killing 2 creatures if they block, right? Which is actually pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd also have to double block this, because this is Menace, and I really like that.
All right. Next up, Kaya's Wrath. Yes. White, black. Destroy all creatures. You gain life equal number of creatures you control that were destroyed this way.
Yes. I mean, the mana cost is kind of absurd on this one, but oh my gosh. I love this card. It's a 4-mana board wipe, and you gain life equal to the number of the creatures you of creatures you control that were destroyed this way. Right?
Yeah, so like partial fumigate. So only if you have creatures do you gain life, but it is a 4-mana Wrath.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a 4-mana Wrath. I don't like the cost is a little scary. That's what's pushing me away from this card a little bit, but I still love the card.
I think like the cost is restrictive and it limits the number of decks that you can play in it, but we've had like Supreme Verdict. This is slightly more restrictive than Supreme Verdict, but Supreme Verdict was really good. So I think you have to be like heavy into white and black, but I think Esper Control can easily take advantage of Kaya's Wrath, and it'll probably be good. Maybe we can see some sort of like Abzan Control or mid-range deck with all the good green-black Planeswalkers in the format. So I think like you got to be in the right deck, but in the right deck, this card is so huge. And I think in some ways it's only fair. Like aggro got Llanowar Elves after Wizards said, oh, we're not doing 1-drop mana dorks anymore. So I think it's fair that slower decks also have a 4-mana Wrath to like help keep up with what's looking like a lot of aggressive. Like Rackdos is aggressive, the Gruul aggressive cards are really scary, and we already have good aggressive decks from Ravnica Allegiance, or from Guilds of Ravnica standard. So I feel like having a 4-mana Wrath is actually going to be really important to the format.
Yeah, I feel this is a really good card, but I think people think it's better than it is because it doesn't go in the decks you kind of typically want 4-mana Wraths. Like if you're thinking Esper Control, it gets really awkward if you're trying to do a blue 1 counter spell and then on the next turn do a white black Wrath. So it becomes very difficult to pull these things off. But even if you don't and you miss by a turn, like 5-mana Wrath is still perfectly playable, right? So it is going to be good, but like you can't splash it. Like say if it was actually Wrath of God, it would be absurd because it goes in basically every deck. But now you got to be basically Orzhov based, and like if you're playing
heavily,
I don't know, if you're playing Abzan, you probably don't want Wraths just randomly, right? Like, so it's gonna be a very special deck, like maybe some kind of Orzhov control or Mardu control, something like that. But it's not gonna go into Esper. It's not. You're gonna have to work really hard to make it work.
I mean, we also have 10 shock lands, so I don't think it'll be that bad in a 3-color deck. Obviously, you can't just play it in every deck like you could a Wrath of God, but I don't think it's gonna be that daunting to play it in like a 3-color control deck.
It has to be 2 splash 1, like 2 color splash 1, right? But if you're trying to do blue colorless counter spell the turn before, like I think you're gonna have a hard time.
Just play.
But if you're playing like negates and essence scatters, then okay.
You got 12 shocks and 12 check lands. Life is perfect.
Seth starts the game at 10 life,
just like Modern.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Seems like a good idea.
Oh, what if they reprinted Death Shadow or something? That'd be absurd.
I don't think it'd be good still. Death Shadow would be pretty bad in standard.
All right. Last up, we got to throw in a janky card. Verity Circle, my personal favorite of the batch here. 2 and a blue. Whenever a creature an opponent control becomes tapped, if it isn't being declared as an attacker, you may draw a card. 4 and a blue. Tap target creature without flying.
Why is this? Why is
no
this your
chance
favorite card?
In standard. No chance in standard. But in Commander, it is like a Mystic Remora or something. Like you're gonna draw so many cards off this thing as you go around the turn, and people are using their mana dorks, their utility creatures, convoking, things like that. But the special thing is if someone goes infinite by tapping creatures, you get to infinitely draw cards. And hopefully as you infinitely draw cards, you get an answer to break their infinite loop. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for that.
I really...
No standard playability. Seth, I need you to break this card on Against the Odds. What do we do with it?
There are some things that make it kind of cute in Standard, because Standard is a creature-based format, so most decks are playing creatures, which is kind of step one. Like, at first I was like, oh, I really want to try this in Modern, because you can, like, Cryptic Command, tap all your opponent's stuff, draw, like, 5 cards, draw another Cryptic, or, like, a Snapcaster for a Cryptic, and just do that every turn. But the problem in Modern is, some decks just don't really play creatures, which is kind of the drawback. In Standard, you have stuff like Merfolk Trickster, which all of a sudden is like even better, but most exciting are cards like Sleep, which just mass taps everything and is going to draw you a bunch of cards. And there's also a 4-drop Merfolk, which Storm Tamer, Storm Caller, something like that does the same thing. It taps all of your opponent's creatures when it enters the battlefield. So that might be the way to go with this. It's right on curve. You like play this on 3, untap turn 4, sleep your opponent, fog them, draw like 4 cards, and just try to keep doing that and draw a bunch of cards throughout the game.
Like a prison deck?
Yeah, mono blue tap prison, something like that.
Yeah.
Wait, is Icy Manipulator?
Oh, Icy is still in the format.
Yeah. And Trickster's in the format, so
these bad combos where the end result is you just draw cards. Well, if your opponent
Time of Ice,
March of Multitudes, you draw a bunch of cards, they attack, you settle the wreckage to stop all those creatures from killing you.
It does hate on Convoke, and also like Llanowar Elves type effects, like tapping your Llanowar Elves is a little bit worse if your opponent gets to draw cards when you do it, so.
To be honest with you, if they have a Llanowar Elf on 1, and then you play this on 3, it doesn't really feel like either one card is helping you catch yourself back in.
They probably already have a Planeswalker that can blow it up by that point.
Yeah. All right, Verity Circle. All right, cool. Vivian Reed. Not blow up your thing. Just keep digging.
Yeah. Don't care about it.
Who cares?
It's
disrespect.
It's also pay 5, draw a card. And I mean, as we've seen on Commander Clash, I've paid way more than that to draw a single card. So it's not
5, Zach. You got to pay 8. You have to pay 8 to draw a card.
I've definitely declined drawing cards, so maybe that's why this is.
All right, we've gone through a lot of spoilers. Any other cards you guys are excited about that you want to talk about? Because we left out a ton of mythics still. Wizards just piled it on us this week.
Quench.
Oh, do you like that?
It's
a bad mana leak.
I mean, a bad mana leak is still better, right? Because like Revolutionary Rebuff, I played a few of those and it wasn't great because of the whole drawback of artifacts. But this one without that drawback, I think Quench could be pretty good. I like it. Making your turn 2 plays into turn 4 plays. This is going to be real good if I'm on the play. And I mean, I don't know. I like this. I like Rhythm of Savagery. Like this whole set so far, I've been kind of in love with the uncommons and the commons.
Yeah, the set, it seems really strong at lower rarity too. And I'm happy because Guilds of Ravnica was pretty strong as well, so I think the guilds from Ravnica Allegiance are going to be strong enough to keep up, hopefully, and really shake up Standard. The other card I want to mention quickly is one of the cards I'm most excited to build around is Electro Dominance, which is 2 red and X at instant speed, X damage to any target, and you can cast a card with converted mana cost X or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. This is a card that I think it's fine in Standard. Like, one of the downsides of Banefire is you kind of spend your entire turn killing something and you don't get to advance your board. With this, for 1 additional mana, you get to kill something and put something into play, which is sweet. But what I'm really excited about is in Modern, this is just pay 2 red mana, cast a Ancestral Visions, Restore Balance, Living End, Wheel of Fate, any of the no mana cost cards from your hand. So I really think that having, like, we've already seen As Foretold builds of like Living End and Restore Balance show up, but they suffer from the fact that you only have As Foretold to cheat your cards into play, which means if you don't draw your As Foretold, it gets a little awkward. With Electro Dominance and As Foretold, odds are like in favor of you having your Restore Balance, Living End, whatever, by turn 3, because you're going to have enough redundancy with both of those cards. So I'm really excited to see if that will actually work in Modern.
Are you not excited for Wilderness Reclamation?
That's a card that I think people are overrating. I think it's really good in specific decks, especially Nexus of Fate decks, which I'm sure everyone wants to get better. So I think it's really good in Nexus of Fate decks, and also probably some sort of like Bant Addendum style deck where you can double up your spells and have a lot of instants. But I think people are overrating just untapping your lands in the average deck. So I think it's a card that like 10% of decks will want or something, but in those decks it's going to be really busted.
Yep. I'm
takes a while
liking
to get that mana back.
It's the split card Canonize. I think it's the Orzhov split card, the one where the front half is a exile target card from a graveyard then draw a card, but the other side is Consume, I think. And yeah, target player sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control, and you gain life equal to the creature's power.
Ooh, Carnage Tyrant answer.
Which side do you like? You like the Consume side to kill Carnage Tyrant?
Yep. Really, I just want the other side.
So here's how we evaluate spoilers. So Seth evaluates whether it works with Pandamonicon. Krim evaluates whether it can kill a Carnage Tyrant. And I evaluate whether it has any value in a janky EDH game.
Great. Together,
I
we
feel
form
like
Voltron.
One day a Carnage Tyrant took Krim out back and did terrible things to him because he has a really big grudge against this innocent dinosaur who's just trying to do his job in Standard.
Wake up in fear that Carnage Tyrant's just gonna be hovering over me.
Wake up in fear of like tiny T-Rex arms like hitting you. Like.
And I love that card and Bellow of the Carnarium. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. Exile all creatures from all graveyards that were put there this turn, and if a creature would die this turn, exile it instead.
Oh, yeah, it's basically oh no, I'm blanking on the card name.
What are you trying to exile that?
Flaying Tendrils?
Yeah, it's like Flaying Tendrils, or what's the one we have in Standard currently that doesn't exile? Golden Demise. It's
Demise?
like a Golden Demise that gets rid of Arclight Phoenixes forever, pretty much.
Oh, an Afterlife? We don't know how much Afterlife is going to matter, but I mean, and like if a creature would die this turn, exile it instead, which means that you can also use it on other things, like bigger things. Like if I just go, all right, well, I'm going to, I don't know, cast down something random of yours, it also gets exiled, right?
It's definitely a big upside, I think, for our I think I would rather play this in Golden Demise in our current format.
100%. I don't mind if I give myself -2, if my stuff gets -2/-2.
It turns off Teysa, Judith. It turns off all those death triggers, right? So
yeah,
that's the upside.
And it keeps Gutterbones in check.
Yeah. Old Gutterbones already getting hated out. Which might actually be needed.
That card.
It's a skeleton, Richard. Look at it.
It's a zombie. It's a zombie. It behaves like a zombie. They should be differentiating.
It's definitely a skeleton.
I think so. I think that skeletons go back to your hand and zombies go to the battlefield. Maybe I just made that up, and that's not true.
No, you just made that up. Skeletons regenerate. That's what they do.
Well, we don't have regenerate anymore.
It's kind of like regenerating.
Yeah, but this just literally is like Gravecrawler or something, right? Like,
yeah, it is.
A 1-mana 2/1 that enters the battlefield tapped is not a skeleton. I refuse to acknowledge this. This does not exist.
Death Baron's gonna make this a powerhouse. Oh. Dredge has got a new toy, right? Like every comment on every spoiler, just Dredge has got a new toy.
It should be like, if a creature regenerated this turn, return it to the battlefield. Like, that's what it should be. Then you're like, that's a skeleton card. Useless, but a skeleton card nonetheless.
All right, are we done with our spoiler section? Is it time for some fish mail on the way out the door today?
It is time for fish mail. So we still have another week of spoilers. So next week we'll be back with more spoilers. And then the set releases the end of the month?
Yes, pre-release is the
25th.
I think that's the release.
Pre-release a week before?
Pre-release, yes, is the 19th, and then set release is the 25th.
Yeah, so we're 2 weeks away from pre-release, and we're going to test how playable the Sphinx is. Wait, the Sphinx is overpowered and limited, yeah?
It's good. Yeah.
We found a hole for him.
It's good,
he's
and
good
limited.
and limited.
But that's because it's a 4/4, not
Are
because you
people
can
really
describe.
saying he's playable in Modern and Legacy?
Someone on
that's a
Star
bit
City
much.
Games wrote an article about how it was like the best card in the set, and it was going to change Legacy and Modern, and yeah, that seemed a little over the top.
I wonder, like, how many pre-game effects can you stack at once? Like, you have the land,
Ley
with
lines.
the lucky counter, the ley lines, the chancellors, the Sphinx.
Just play them all together and hope for the best.
Yeah, and then you play for like 5 minutes before the first turn has started. That'd be great.
But you're also at like 2 cards in hand, and they're probably
I'm like, I'm done. I'm out of gas. It's turn 1. I'm out of gas, guys.
it's super card disadvantage.
All right.
Well, actually, no, because then the Sphinx balances it out, right?
Yep. All right. Fishmail. If you have questions, send it to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. Sebastian Tans, do you guys think Primeval Titan should be banned in Commander?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, the Commander ban list is so weird, and I don't really understand the rhyme or reason of it, but Primeval Titan getting any 2 lands, it could set up some pretty busted synergies.
Yeah. I mean, that just seems kind of ridiculous. I mean, pulling things just like the, whatever, Temple of the False Gods is already too much for me. And it's too much.
You're probably not prime timing Temple of the False Gods out. But
No, you're not. But the thing is, you can get anything. Like that's what I'm saying. Like Temple of the False Gods is already too much, and all the lands that are in EDH are even more absurd. So I definitely don't want them to get those.
I think it's dumb. I feel like it shouldn't be banned. Like when we have things like Survival of the Fittest in the format, like we have all these cards that are auto includes in all the colors anyway. Like I don't know why Primeval Titan needs to get picked on. Like you have cards that you always play in green anyway, so like Prime Time can be one of those, right? And it lets you tutor up lands, which is pretty cool. And if you don't like that, you can just counterspell Prime Time on the way down. Like I don't know. I feel there's no rhyme or reason, and I feel like the ban list that we have is for a specific play group. And you know, I can understand why a play group would want this ban list, but to apply it to everyone, like I don't know, Prime Time's not that broken. I mean, if it's playable in Modern, like why is it banned in Commander? Like I have no idea.
I mean, I agree with the overall sentiment of that, because I mean, anything that's banned with Soul Ring being legal doesn't make sense to me. Like it's literally the best card in the entire format, and if Soul Ring is okay, it's hard to argue that anything else is not.
Oh, what's the blue reserve list card that's legal?
Oh, Time Twister.
Yeah, you're just like, why are these cards legal, but like Prime Time not? Like, or every time we play Survival of the Fittest, Gaia's Cradle, we're like, oh, okay, sure, I'll do that. Next question. M. Keenard, did WotC miss an opportunity with the standard to print a challenger deck? If they had, what should have been in the challenger deck?
Well, I think challenger decks, I would expect them to come again this standard, but I expect, like last year, that we'll see them a few months before rotation. I think that's how WotC views the challenger decks, is a way to get some more value out of cards, like 6-ish months before they rotate, rather than right when a new standard format comes out. So I think we will still get them. I would expect to see lots of the best cards from Dominaria through Ixalan blocks. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Teferi in a challenger deck, but I don't think it'll happen until like 4 to 6 months before rotation. So like next spring towards the start of summer, basically.
Teferi's Modern playable. Do you think they'd put him in a challenger
They
deck?
put Chandra in. Chandra's Modern playable.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Next question. Ring White. If all Planeswalkers could be commanders, which one would be the best?
I mean, I would just go with Teferi, right? I mean, it could tuck any, like the 5-mana one, you can tuck anything.
That's the Teferi's instant death. He cannot protect himself. You tuck something and then everyone else kills it.
I think it's gotta be something with green in its colors because of doubling season. Because that's like the most busted thing you can do in Commander is doubling season. But I'm not sure what green X Planeswalker, like, are there any that just straight up win you the game that are in green? And I can't think of one off the top. Maybe like the Kiora that makes 8 8 octopuses that you could just keep doing that, making octopuses or something. But it's got to be a green one.
Does she ult as soon as she comes down though?
Doubling season.
Because she starts at 2, right? And it ults at 5.
Let me see. Does she not ultimate?
Yeah, like it's Crashing Wave, right?
You're right. Crashing Wave does not. That gets an emblem where you make one. Kiora Master of Depths gives you 3 8/8 octopuses and does ultimate right away.
Oh.
But I think
I forgot there was that.
Yeah, there's a few. I don't know. What do you think, Richard?
I feel it's gotta be a cheap planeswalker so that you can like cast them several times. But I like say an Ugin, where you just have a Wrath ready to go in your command zone at any time. But colorless control deck is a bit awkward. None of the party Jace. Everyone loves party Jace. They're not gonna kill him. I don't know. I think you are right though, Seth. That it's gonna be a green planeswalker that goes with doubling season.
Yeah, I just can't think of the best one at the moment. I'm frantically searching through green planeswalkers to find one that just wins the game, and I don't. Maybe Vraska Relic Seeker is not bad. Just put someone to 1 right away. It's probably Tamio Field Researcher, because you just get immediate draw 3 plus Omniscience for the rest of the game.
That is good. All right, next question. Wanna be Beard Bros. If WotC lifted the Banhammer in Modern, let it go wild, do you think any of the old decks can be just as strong as the current meta?
So if they got rid of the Modern ban list, would any of the old decks be as strong?
Yeah, don't we have some really absurd broken combo decks?
Yeah, Storm would be pretty busted with no ban list. Infect would get a lot better.
Yeah, Blazing Shoal comes back, right?
The turn 2 Blazing Shoal Infect deck would be a thing again. Skull Clamp is one of the scariest cards, or Original Affinity with all the artifact lands. I think both of those decks would be pretty absurd.
And you can actually get the stores run no ban list Modern from time to time, so the results of those kind of indicate what the top decks would be. So if you just actually pull up those old deck lists, you can actually kind of see where we mix kind of the old decks with the new decks. And spoiler alert, they're mostly old decks that win.
Yeah, that sounds pretty hard to live past turn 3.
All right, last question. Manseer's Legros. Support, Outlast, Bolster, Adapt, Monstrous, Explore, Riot. No one finds them interesting or exciting. Are +1/+1 counters the peak of lazy design?
I find some of those pretty exciting.
Monstrous, exciting. Riot, exciting. Explore, kind of exciting.
Bolster, players love +1/+1 counters though. Maybe it's sort of lazy to some extent, but I also think there's a lot of people that's one of their favorite themes. So I think it's also Wizards trying to meet expectations and give players what they want. I think especially new players love +1/+1 counter themes. So
I feel they like Monstrous and Adapt. Players love putting a bunch of +1/+1 counters, but putting one is weak, and that's why we don't like Bolster or Support or Outlast, right? But when you can dump 20 counters with the Monstrous trigger or something, you're yeah, I did something. So I feel it's the quantity of +1/+1 counters that matters.
Yeah, I think that might be correct, that more counters is better than smaller numbers. I don't know. I think
you remember back in the day we had other counters? We had did we have +2/+2 counters? We had some weird
there used to be,
which they've gone away
there's
from.
+2 -1 counters and and all kinds of random numbers. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, we need to bring that back. Or
a Vampire did that, right?
Ice counters.
We still occasionally get.
We get those occasionally. We got brick counters.
Yeah, and we got growth counters, I think, on Simic Ascendancy. So we still occasionally get unique counters, but yeah, we don't get anything except +1/+1 counters, which is actually probably good. I think it would be super confusing to have some counters that were +1/+1 and some that were other numbers. That would be very hard to keep track of.
Well, it would totally vindicate the people that use coins as counters. They're a penny's a +1/+1 counter, a nickel's a +5/+5. Right,
it was an old Vampire card, right? That did that, added
Baron. Well, that was one of them. I think does Baron Sengir do that?
No, Baron Sengir does not do that.
But I know that there was an older vampire that added like specifically like a 2/2 counter.
It actually
or
does.
right?
When a creature dealt damage by Baron Senger dies, put a +2/+2 counter on it.
Oh, I thought you guys were talking about +2/-1.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what does that.
No,
yeah, Baron Singer was
just 2/1/1 counters. I'm just happy that it went with that instead of adding a +2/+2 counter.
It makes what's the fake doubling season? The one that gives you an additional counter?
Ooh, hardened scales.
Yeah. So then you get +4/+4. But it was 2+1/+1 counters. You'd only get +3/+3. You see, there's advantages to that +2/+2 counter.
That is correct.
I'm actually curious if Moto works. I actually want to just build a deck with this stuff to see if it actually works.
Yeah, I think I've gotten it on Momir before, and I think it does work, but it's been a while, so you never know.
All right, that's all our fish mail. Thank you to everyone who sent them in. You can send them to @MTGGoldfish with our hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I think that brings us to the end of episode 205 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard, Krim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening, and thanks to Adult Swim for supporting the show today. You can check out Tigtone over on Adult Swim January 13th at midnight. So thank you to them. Anyway, everyone, have a wonderful week. We'll be back next week with the full Ravnica Allegiance set. Until then, this is Sick signing out.